This is week 2, day 2, because it's a hybrid. Our hybrid classes meet on Fridays. A couple items before we get into the content here. Tech Club. Everybody's invited to belong to Tech Club. We have some tech dens coming up, which I will give some dates next Friday. We can publish that too. And then the cyber defense part of Tech Club, they're going to meet Monday, 12 to 1, and start assigning tasks. We are entering some cyber competition this spring, and that will be coming up in February, so we need to get started at getting ready for that. And anybody can participate if you're a student here, so you can spread the word if you know somebody that's interested. Let me know if you can't meet from 12 to 1. We'll get it set up. And on Monday, we'll meet either in MH216 or we'll meet in PC229. Okay, web design. This is our second day. We started out, we talked about browsers and information communications technology. That was funny. We did a little more HTML. We talked about file structures and the web. We looked at a little bit more of the Mozilla Development Network, and we didn't do a whole lot on questions on the course, so we'll have to do that first next week. One thing I've noticed are the outlines. There's an outline for you to be filling in, and it goes by sections. So we should be filling in the first section and finishing that up. That is in the key skills area, and that's under course preparation, prep materials. So the process is there, and also I mentioned that in announcements. That's another thing. Inside the curriculum, I will keep the announcements updated each week, so you can look at the announcements. It talks about where we were and where we're going. So let me highlight that somewhere here. Each week you want to look at the announcements. Those are in the course in Canvas. Alright, let's get going on some more materials here. For some people to log in, we define the term to publish, and we'll mention that again here later on in our whiteboard review. You can work on your website locally and then publish it to the web server. Packages that allow you to publish and unpublish, we'll look at a bunch of examples on Friday. We talked about leaving a bookmark in order to know where you were. We talked about the history. All of this information kind of came from doing this work up here with browsers and ITC skills, basic skills. A little bit more of that. We covered browsers, and we asked what's the reason that you might want to know a little bit about Firefox, Chrome, Edge, Safari, Opera, and there's a few others that are less popular. We'll talk some more about those as we go along. The reason it's important to understand those is when you create your web page, you need to test it in multiple browsers to see how it looks. And you need to test it on maybe a PC, a laptop, a tablet, and a phone, and see how it looks on all those. Now, some people said some of these were browsers, but Bing, that's really search, Google has search, Yahoo has search, MSN, not as familiar with, but a student mentioned it as search. It's a search engine. Okay, let's keep moving here. Make sure in the course, since it's a hybrid, you run into some questions, you have to get a hold of Ms. Miller or Mr. Dirksen. Me, Mr. Dirksen, or Kelly Miller. Let's take a look at this, and then we'll look at it in a broader view. On campus, this server right here, Work Server 2, which we're using with our web pages. So your web page is right on here somewhere. It's a web server. It's running, we'll talk more about it later, but it's running Apache on a Linux operating system, which allows it to be a web server. This is the address internally. That's a private address. This is how you would access it externally. This device then is connected to a switch, which is in what we call a DMZ. It's connected to a firewall. And then also connected to that firewall is a multi-layered switch and another switch, and then the PCs. So you draw a little line here in between. So here on the PCs in the room, we log in, so we're acting as a client. And over here, this is acting as a server. This is a good way to work on HTML. You can create a local set of directories for your website. You can work on these, and then when it's time to publish, you can send a copy out to the server. That way, when you make changes here, you have a backup, plus the users coming in here from the internet, they don't see this one. So they don't see you working and changing and so forth. They just see the one that's published out here. So like, yeah, let's say we come in from the internet. We're going to look at this a little bit more in a second to get your HTML, and then they bring it back to their browser. Okay, bring it back to their browser. Like we said, the popular ones, Firefox, Chrome, Safari. I'm not sure how popular Edge is. We could look it up sometime. Next thing. Here's the big picture. I asked students where is their information when we use Canvas. Well, Canvas is actually supported by AWS. So AWS allows Canvas to have, it's actually in structure, and we looked at the path for in structure. We'll look at that again on Friday. But it's really hosted out here in the cloud. So when we're when we're sitting here on a client and we look at Canvas, we're actually going out into the internet out to here. Same thing with our Google information, like our outlines. They're really being stored here at Google. So somewhere there at Google, it might be their site in Council Bluffs. They have a huge site in Council Bluffs. They're actually building a new one there. It could be there. We also talked about if we want to come and we're at home, if we use this public address, we should be able to come in here through the DMZ and get to our website. Plus other people should be able to get to our website if they have access to the internet from wherever they are. Maybe they're at Cabin Coffee down the street. But part of the reason a firewall works well firewall will not let this outside traffic, let's say this person from Timbuktu, can't get in. Now they can get into the DMZ to see our website, but they can't get into our local network. That's why they can't access the website off your computer here. This would work the same way at your home. people from the outside should never be able to access your information in your home unless you give them specific permission. And we can talk about that later on. You could run a website out of your house. I would never advise somebody to do that unless they really understood how networking works. What we need to be working on. Okay? We've got, let me do this in another color here. You've got your outline, which, if you don't understand how to do that, I put some information in the announcements, and there's some videos on how to do that. We can still, we'll address it Friday for sure. Yeah, so we have your outline, we have curriculum materials you need to be working on, and that is working down through the modules in the curriculum. And then we have your website you can be working on. When you submit your website, you're going to keep information from your website. You're going to keep a document with all this information at the top, who you are and so forth, the date and so forth. And then you're going to capture things like your file structure, the actual web page, and then the HTML that you change and addressed. And you'll keep putting the new information at the top each time. So when we get done, this will be an entire documentation of how you created your sample website using HTML. That's one last thing. Here we have an example of, over here we have our access to the web server. Okay, this is looking at storage on the web server. It's looking at our particular materials. Now in this case it's Kelly Miller's, one of the instructors in the class. Okay, over here in contrast, I'll use another color. This is where you could develop your information on a PC. This is actually looking at a directory on my local computer. You notice drive C. So you could develop your web page here and then, so to speak, with the idea of publishing, publish it over here, because this is what the public sees and this is private, what you see. Later on, when we talk about content management systems, you can very often create draft copies and then finally get one you like and then publish it. Okay? And everybody's happy. That is it. Let me know if you have questions.